Hello and welcome to Inside Syria. I'm Jane Dutton. The United States president is still seeking support for military strikes against Bashar al-Assad's forces. Barack Obama says the Syrian regime must be punished for an alleged chemical attack on civilians last month. But first, Obama must get approval from Congress. That could take a few weeks. Internationally, the US is standing alone so far. France says it'll wait until the United Nations releases its report into the alleged attack before it supports a US campaign. The European Union agrees. However, several nations have signed a statement that support a strong international response that, of course, falls short of backing a military strike.
In the face of this cynical use of chemical weapons, the international community cannot remain idle. A clear and strong response is crucial to make clear that such crimes are unacceptable and that there can be no impunity.
On the other side, Russian President Vladimir Putin is leading the charge. China is also on the same side as Russia, helping to veto previous attempts for action at the UN Security Council. Other countries that have spoken out against the US-led campaign are India, Indonesia, Argentina, Brazil and South Africa. Let me introduce you to our guests. Richard Murphy is in New York. He's the former US ambassador to Syria and Saudi Arabia. And here in Doha is Saleh Mubarak. He's from the Syrian National Council. And finally, Vyacheslav Matuzov in Moscow. He's a former Russian diplomat and currently the chairman of the Russian Friendship Society with Arab countries. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm going to start off by asking you all the same question. I want to know what your position is on the strike and to lay out the reasons for that position. Let's go first to you, Richard. What's the American argument for the strike to go ahead?
The use of chemical weapons is unacceptable, and the party responsible must be held accountable. And the reason for the strike is to deter the responsible party from any future use, and to that has been added the phrase to degrade its capacity to do such a strike again.
Vyacheslav, what is the Russian angle on this and the reason not to support this strike?
First of all, I agree with a point that anyone who uses chemical weapon should be punished. It is not acceptable for Russia to see what is going on in Syria when some chemical matters or chemical weapon is used against civil population. Absolutely clear that it is not acceptable in any form. But the question is, who is that side that used chemical matters or chemical weapon against civil population? It should be registered and punished. But Russia don't consider, according to the sources, that Syrian government behind this attack. On the contrary, Russia considers that attack was undertaken by some groups, maybe terroristic groups, maybe fundamentalistic groups that are working under cover of Syrian's Free Army, Syrian opposition, and the not maybe responsible political leaders of Syrian opposition, Syrian army, but some groups non-controlled on that territory made this criminal case.
Saleh, the SNC's position on this, why do you want this strike to go ahead? Lay out your reasons.
Well, both the SNC and the coalition, their basis is what the two gentlemen said, that there is somebody who used the chemical weapons. And we all, the three of us, agree on that whoever used that chemical weapons should be punished. So we have a firm belief and evidence that it was the Syrian regime, and we're willing to go to any neutral party. But in addition to this, I would like to add a little statement that those who were killed recently in Al-Ghouta by the chemical attack, about 1,500 people in one attack. let's add those to about 125,000 to 150,000, some estimates put it as high as 200,000 people killed in Syria with conventional weapons. I don't think we should discount that statement at all, because killing is killing, whether it's by chemical weapons or by other means. And I don't think anyone can argue when a cluster bomb or barrel bomb or vacuum bomb or whatever bomb is dropped from the sky. I don't think anyone argues that it was the Syrian regime, because the opposition doesn't have air force. Those Scud missiles and so on. So there is no question who is killing the civilians in Syria, who is destroying the country.
Richard, so the US at this stage, or certainly Barack Obama, wants to go ahead with the strike. You lay out the reasons, but what sort of support, what sort of international support does the US have at this stage?
Well, the president comes back from the G20 conference in St. Petersburg with expressions of support, but limited, and without a majority endorsing an American military strike, at least publicly. What may have been said privately, I don't know. So he is now back in the United States and preparing to make a presentation to the American public, while his aides continue to speak to individual congressmen and senators to explain the entire picture. And I think that our public and our Congress are waiting for that presentation. There's still a strong desire for the evidence on which the president has based his decision.
If we can go back to the international support that the US is looking for, I mean, it certainly seems at this stage that France, its strongest ally, is wavering. Now, they have come out to say that they will only go in once they are convinced of the UN report, once they've seen the UN weapons inspector's report. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think French public opinion has been critical of President Hollande's decision to intervene. And he is talking of waiting for the UN inspector's report to add to his justification for going ahead. I don't think that's going to be a serious question of delay, because everyone seems to be ready to await a decision of what happened from the UN inspectors.
And at the same time, excuse me, jumping in here, on Saturday,
Yeah.
Catherine Ashton from the EU said that they had proof that Bashar al-Assad did indeed use chemical weapons, but she too is endorsing the French position not to go in yet until the report is released.
That's fine. I think the timing of the one is not going to interfere with the plans for action. But to recall that the report will not assess responsibility for which party did the act. They will describe the nature of the chemical weapons used, presumably the intensity of its concentration as a weapon, and other facts that they have worked on the ground. But their mandate is not to point the finger of responsibility.
Saleh, does it concern you at all that one of the strongest supporters of this strike, France, seems to be stepping back, appears to be stepping back from its position of going in without a UN report?
Well, we know France is a democracy. Most of democracies, the politicians very much depend on public opinion. And public opinion has not been very supportive for multiple of reasons. One of them is the, alleged chemical or weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in 2003, which later on was verified to be false. Another reason is the economic situation. A third reason is the mess of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and others. People don't want to start something that seems to be minor and then escalates to a major. So I don't think France is taking a step back, but it's...
And yet, even you, without knowing who is behind this at this stage, and we might never know, are pushing for the strike?
Well, you said we don't know. For us, we do know, but we want to prove it beyond any reasonable doubt to the general public everywhere and tell people, yes, we do have solid evidence. And as I said, we have plenty of evidence, whether it's in the hands of the Syrian opposition or in other friendly countries such as Turkey and US and others. We are willing to accept a neutral committee who will determine who used the chemical weapons. And that was the crucial question that the current UN Inspectors Committee did not have the authorization to do.
Vyacheslav, do you think this will push Russia into possibly taking a different position? Those outspoken words by Catherine Ashton that they did indeed have proof that Bashar al-Assad was behind this attack. You yourself said that Russia will get involved if they know that a chemical attack took place.
Russia doesn't agree on political reasons, blame Syrian regime, because Russia doesn't have a desire to overthrow this regime. It is not planning by Russians to overthrow Syrian regime, and all actions after that should be working for implementing this idea. What embarrassing me personally? Embarrassing me personally, some information I received through internet that, first of all, some balloon of gas sarin was captured by Turkish police some 2 months ago, that were with some vessels were transporting from northern Iraqi region to Syria through Turkish territory. And Turkish police arrested those people, and the balloon of 3 or 5 kilo of sarin. And after that, all information on this issue was don't hear anything, and that's all. After that, the second thing, Khan al-Assad, that not far from Aleppo city, to the northern area, was used. There was used also some not weapon chemical, but chemical materials, self-made. In some primitive...
It certainly seems to me that maybe Putin and Obama should be sharing this information with each other. They should be laying out on the table exactly what it is that they do have.
I know that.
Do you think that Russia is lacking support in its camp, though, because it is afraid to confront Bashar al-Assad about these chemical weapons? Because it's not prepared to take any action?
Not at all. Motivation of Russian behavior is not absence of desire to punish those who made this crime. But I personally noticed increasing information. One person said 1,500, the second said 385, and maybe 500. Even the number of victims are different, greatly different. And so sir, I suspect that there are quite a lot of politicized side behind all this using chemical weapon in Eastern Ghouta.
Okay.
The second thing.
So can I move on a little bit?
Line.
Okay, can I move on, because I don't want to get into too much of the minutiae of the chemical weapons and what was used, but I'm trying to find out who Russia is looking to for support of its position. Who it can rely on?
Not Hezbollah, not any other foreign forces, because Syria, on our opinion, has possibility to fight. Syrian army have 300 approximately, between 250, 300,000 of soldiers so they don't need any great support, because main role is confronting military groups is a Syrian army. But I have a question for another story. Who is this military groups? As according to our information, I heard from Sergei Lavrov, the number of those who came to Syria from different parts of Islamic world, or even from Europe, from the United States, and even from Russian Federation.
Okay, should we put that to Saleh?
40,000. It is 2 divisions.
Okay.
It is a great number.
Saleh, this goes into my question
Syrians
to you
who are fighting
of
Syrian
what sort
army.
of support do you have on your position? Vyacheslav was bringing up an important point there, that there are so many different players here, and there are many who do not support a strike on Syrian soil. There are those who support Bashar al-Assad. They don't want to leave Damascus. Who are you relying on?
Well, actually, it's more than one question. He's talking about foreign fighters, and we do acknowledge that there are foreign fighters on both sides, actually, but the numbers are not as great, and we would like to get international support to the mainstream opposition, the Free Syrian Army leadership, and that will marginalize those groups that hopefully they will not have any role in ruling a new, free and democratic Syria. But right now, for this strike, all what we say to those people who are opposed, and I've communicated with many people inside Syria, including family members, and they are afraid and so on. There is a sort of propaganda by the regime that many civilians will be killed and Americans will bomb cities and so on, and Iraq war will be repeated here. There is a false propaganda. I'm telling them that, number one, I will not tell you that attack is a beautiful thing, that we were so happy about it. But it's the lesser of the two evil, and the other evil being the status quo. Going on with this regime, 150, 200 people getting killed every day. We have to do something. And we explained to them that the Americans have been very, very advanced in precision hits, and the target is not people, whether they are with the regime or against the regime. The target is the facilities that will manufacture and deliver weapons of mass destruction. And I think after explaining those kind of things, most people do support such a strike, because it's like a cancer patient. If you don't do a surgery that is, painful, the patient will die. We don't want that patient to die.
Saleh, with that in mind, I mean, some of the strongest voices in the no camp are coming from the United Nations. Its Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says a US strike would make the situation worse. The UN envoy to Syria says it opposes it too. And on Friday, I spoke to Peter Kessler, the senior spokesman for the UN Refugee Agency in the Middle East. I asked him if he had a message for those debating a strike.
Well, we have to remember the civilians, the women, the children, the innocent men, the elderly who are already refugees outside the country. We have to remember those people who are displaced inside the country. The UN believes that there are some 6.8 million people inside Syria in need. UNHCR and our partners are trying to reach many of these people with aid, and we are succeeding. But indeed, it's a conflict that has ignited enormous numbers of refugees and displaced persons. It's affecting not just the Middle East, but of course the wider international community, and everyone has to find a peaceful solution, we hope, so that these people don't spend a fourth, a fifth, a sixth year in exile.
Richard, just hearing those numbers and how people suffer, I mean, is the US prepared for the backlash that it's likely to get if innocent people die in these strikes, if these strikes prompt Bashar al-Assad to take further revenge on his own people, unleash chemical weapons?
There is no question in my mind that the American military planners are focusing on facilities, on fixed targets, because I don't recall an attack or a strike being so advertised, publicly advertised before it happens. There's no element of surprise left. And the president in Syria has had the opportunity to move personnel mobile records, mobile equipment, but there remain facilities that he cannot move that were involved in the attack. That's the position of our military. It's their job to come up with the precise targeting, but every effort is going to be made to avoid harming the civilian population. They are in a terrible state, and the international resources have been far from adequate to take care of them. The international funding is almost exhausted, it seems, and the the exit of the people and the movement inside Syria continues. So that's on everyone's mind in the United States.
Vyacheslav, excuse me, jumping in here, Richard. Where do you think this would leave Russia if we do see many innocent people dying in the strikes if they do indeed go ahead? Because obviously Russia's not going to want to get too involved in any sort of proxy war with the US.
As I imagine, today, even today, when America declared its intention to bomb some targets in Syria, about 1 million citizens, civil citizens, rushed to neighbor countries, to Lebanon, to Jordan, to Turkey, and to Iraq, because they're afraid of war, they're afraid to be died. And this humanitarian catastrophe that was there before this proclamation of strike for Syria was huge, 2 million refugees, and now 1 million more. So suffering, humanitarian side, even today, when it is not any bombing to Syrian targets, it's awful. But I can tell another story. I watched some civil war in Lebanon during all this period of civil war. I know what doesn't mean to wage war in big cities. Even strikes from rockets, American ships, American strategy aviation, of any type. Precision strike, it is impossible when all targets are located in populated area. I think it is very dangerous thing to find those who are responsible inside the great city like Damascus is, or Aleppo, or something like that. I think that to divide military targets and civil targets, it is task absolutely important. We watch it in Yugoslavia when they bombed Chinese embassy, for example. We watch it in Baghdad where they strike civil people like journalists group.
Okay.
Who were with cameras on their
Okay, let me put what you're saying to Saleh. It must make you sick to the pit of your...
responsibility.
Sorry, excuse me,
it is the accident of the war.
It must make you feel sick to the pit of your stomach just thinking how many people could die in this. I mean, do you think this really is going to save lives? And who do you think will ultimately win with this action if it goes ahead?
Well, I invite those people to weigh the pros and cons of having the strike and not having the strike. Of course, there is no 100% clean war in the world, in the history, and there won't be. But I think it will be very close to that. And as mentioned before, and Mr. Murphy mentioned, it will be targeting facilities, not personnel. So there could be, Mr. Matuzov mentioned some true examples. Yes, in Iraq, there was an accident of striking a bunker. In Yugoslavia, they hit the Chinese embassy. So accidents could happen, and I hope it will not happen at that scale. But let's imagine the cost of not having the strike. In fact, I had a report, I think earlier today or yesterday, that there was another limited, use of chemical weapons happen. And one quick thing I want to respond to, Mr. Matuzov, he mentioned Khan al-Assad in Aleppo that the rebels have used. A couple days ago, the chief forensic physician in the Syrian regime, Dr. Abdul Tawwab Shahrour, defected, and he says he has material evidence that it was the regime who was responsible for the chemical weapons in Khan al-Assad itself.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you very much to my guests, Richard Murphy in New York, Vyacheslav Matuzov in Moscow and Saleh Mubarak here in Doha. Don't forget, you can find this program and many more at aljazeera.com. You can leave us your comments there too. I'm Jane Dutton. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye for now.